Hello and welcome back to another episode of Ruining Your Childhood.
Welcome back to another episode of Ruining Your Childhood, one sculpt at a time. Today we're going to be going to the comments and seeing who you would like me to sculpt. So today we're going to be sculpting Bender. First we're going to want to start off with a big ball of clay, and we're going to roll that down into a kind of a slanted cylinder. This is going to be the main portion of his body. After we get this oblong shape, we're going to go in and slice it to the exact body proportions that we're looking for here. And after slicing off that extra protruded member, we're going to go ahead and give it a little bit of a tippy tap just to flatten out the bottom. Then I take this rolled out piece of clay, and we're going to wrap this around the surface. I just kind of want to give a little bit of a separation from the upper part and bottom part. We're going to go for like a weathered version of him. They made him a little too crispy clean, so we want to kind of dirty him up. We're going to make him kind of a scrapyard version, I guess. After I got that piece of skin flap wrapped around him, I went ahead and sliced off that excess. Then I took the back end of my X-Acto knife and I smoothed it all out. Give it a couple rolls just to make sure it was extra flat. He is a robot, so we don't want any organic shapes. I want that bod to be high and tight. You know what I'm saying? I take the back end of my X-Acto knife again, favorite tool, and then I kind of push in and emboss the top part. This is going to be a little section that I could place his head in. And before we work on the head, we're going to go in and install that door. Now, originally I was going to have it swivel open, but that's a little bit of my expertise. Doors. Tell me about it. I don't know what I'm saying. So all I did was I just cut out a little square of clay, attaching that to the front. Gave a little booger roll out of a piece of clay and then attached that to the front. I was a little too good at that roll, pinch and roll motion. Disgusting. With his knob attached, we went ahead and rolled out a piece of clay, attaching that to the side of the door. This is going to be the hinge. Take my X-Acto knife going down the surface, leaving little embossed lines that we could just add some texture. Off camera, I went ahead and pushed in these two little divots on the side. This is just going to help me install the arms later. And now off to the head. Kind of like the body, we start off with a ball of clay, rolling it out into a cylinder shape. The reason I start with a ball and then roll it out is that way I could keep a round end, and then I could just slice off one end, keeping it flat on the other. Otherwise, it's just really difficult to get that kind of continuous round look. Once I'm happy with that head shape, we could form fit it to the body, making sure it looks proportionally correct, and then take my X-Acto knife, getting rid of any little spaces between the head and the bod. Now that we're done with the main shapes, we could start adding in those little details, starting with his eye hood. I took a flattened out piece of clay and then I just stick the ends together, blending that seam in with a ball stylus. Kind of measure it on the front just to make sure it's the right length before slicing off a little half circle. This is just going to give us a little bit more of a seamless connection. And after painstakingly getting that reconnected to the front, we could go ahead and take one of my silicone sculpting tools, working my way around that hood, blending it back into the head to get more of a seamless connection. With his eye scoop form fitted to his face, I went ahead and took some pre-baked eyeballs, putting them on the inside. Try not to mess up the shape too much. Happy with the placement of his balls, we could keep on trucking along and work on his mouth. Once again, taking the back end of my X-Acto knife, I slide that across where his teeth are going to be. Make several passes until I get a groove that is deep enough. And as for his teeth, instead of just drawing them in, I kind of wanted to make them pop a little bit. Rolled out a piece of tapeworm, and I cut off the ends of that, painstakingly laying those across until I get a grid shape. Moving on to Bender's antenna, we go ahead and roll out a ball shape, slicing that in half, applying that to the top of the head, and then take a thin piece of wire, push that in. This is going to help prevent it from getting knocked off later. And then I take another smaller ball, attach that to the tip, and with that, we pretty much have the main portion of his body done, and we can put it in the oven for its first bake. And with Bender backed and baked, we can go ahead and give him that flick test, which accomplishes absolutely nothing. I'm not sure why we are forced to flick our hardened clay, but we all do it. I went ahead and pre-drilled some holes on the sides and bottom. This is where we're going to attach his arms and legs. I take some armature wire, shoving that into his body, making sure it's nice and tight. And once I was happy with the length of his appendages, I went ahead and removed his arm, filled that little divot in with some liquid Sculpey, taking a ball of clay, shoving that in to make a little bit of a ball joint. And then we're gonna go on to the process of skinning his arms. If you've seen any of my other videos, you probably already know what's up, but I take some liquid Sculpey, brush that along that pipe there, take some skin flap, wrapping that around the pipe, taking my X-Acto knife, slicing it to a smooth perfection. I find this is probably the best way to cover wire without getting lopsided, bumpy arms, if you want something nice and clean and crisp like I do. After I'm happy with after his arm's all sleeved up, we could go ahead and bend it back into his cigar smoking position and start his other appendages. I just want to take some time and say thank you guys so much for watching the video. Hope you all are enjoying it so far. If you guys are, go ahead and hit that like button, and if you're new here, hit that subscribe button. That way you could check out some more characters. I plan on doing a lot of them. So definitely leave a comment down below letting me know who you would like me to sculpt next. Y'all have been giving me some amazing suggestions and I've been loving it. So thank you, and I think it's been helping the channel grow to the rate that it has been, so I really appreciate you guys, so keep them coming. Anyway, enough of me yapping. Now that his arms and legs are fully sleeved up, we could start the detail process. Take the back end of my X-Acto knife going up and down the legs and arms to get these little robot looking slinky joints. I don't know what they're called, but they look like this. And once I was happy with that, we could go ahead and stick it in the oven for its final bake. And yes, I do say final bake, and that's because unfortunately when it was in the oven, it cracked. Yeah, it's happened sometimes, but well, so I'm gonna have to bake everything separate, but that's okay. For the feet, we're gonna roll out a ball of clay, and we're gonna slice that in half. They're just pretty much 2 little discs shoved onto the bottom of his feet there, and I shove that up that pole. I then take my little painting stand, aka a block of wood, shoving that into it just to make sure that the bottoms are flat. Once I was done with those, I could go ahead and stick them in the oven, let those bake, and we could start working on those hands. Take a ball of clay, kind of roll it out into a little can shape. Taking my X-Acto knife, I slice off the ends. Then I take that can of ravioli and shove it on that little nub there. For the fingers, I roll out some pieces of tapeworm, then cut off some equal-sized sausages. And then take those sausages and place them around that can, putting 2 on one side and 1 on the other to indicate the thumb. For this hand, I want him to be holding a stogie. And just like the fingers, I roll out a piece of tapeworm, tapering off one end, and then take it, place it between the fingers, wrapping the fingers around it. Take my small ball stylus, blend in the fingers into the hand. Then I use that same ball stylus to kind of touch up the end of the stogie to make it look like it was lit. I was pretty happy with how this turned out, so I went ahead and made the other hand off camera, put those in the oven to bake, and once I took them out of the oven and let them cool down fully, I went ahead and super glued those onto the end. With that done, we could go ahead and start on his base coat. Went ahead and primed him with a black paint. Then we're gonna give him this Extreme Metal by AK titanium color. Never actually used this before. It's an enamel paint, so we're gonna have to let this dry overnight, which isn't ideal for me, but you know, the finish is pretty hard to beat, so I'm pretty happy with how it turns out. And with his base coat done, and 24 hours later, we got this snazzy looking base coat. And now we could go ahead and start on his mouth and eyes. I use a slightly off-white tone just to fill in the main portion of his mouth. Then I go back in with a lighter white to kind of bring out some of those highlights. And his eyes are going to be getting that same exact treatment, starting with an off-white, and then going more toward the front with a brighter white. And once I let his mouth fully dry, I then go back in with some black paint to draw in his teeth. And with Bender all cheesed up, we could go ahead and start on the weathering process. I was looking pretty forward to this part. This is where we're gonna really grime him up and make him look like how he should be, I think. You know, he's a foul-mouthed robot, and I think that he should be a little weathered. To achieve this rust look, I'm using this stuff called Rust Streaks. It's also another AK product. Not sponsored, by the way, just letting you know what I'm using. I kind of just go around the body and head and put it in places where I think that rust would be built up over the years. And then after that, I do go in with a little bit of orange paint to make those spots pop a little bit more. Now that we got Bender looking all rusty, crusty, and dusty, we could go ahead and go up and finish up his eyes. I take some black paint, then painstakingly find the center of the eyes, making the pupils. I wanted him to have a scowl on his face, so I went ahead and also painted in some eyelids. And to finish off his eyes, I went ahead and cut out this little piece of clear plastic that I'm gonna attach to the front of his visor using super glue. I'm gonna be adding some details off camera, but in the meantime, let's go ahead and start on that base. I start off with a piece of 3x3 EVA foam, then I take a ball stylus and start to draw in little panels. I want it to look like he's standing in their spaceship, so I'm going to try to match the paint to that. happy with the placement of the panels, I go ahead and give the whole thing a silver base coat. And once I let that silver fully dry, I'm going to be doing a technique that I first saw from Stutson Studios. It's called Don't Paint the Edges. This is a really good way to get a chipped paint look, making something look more weathered. Once I was happy with how that looked and let it fully dry, I hit the whole thing with a black wash, making sure it seeps into all the cracks and recesses, and then I dab it all off with a piece of paper towel. This helps give it a little bit of a weathered look as well. And once I was happy with the level of grime on this, I went ahead and started adding some of the rust detail as I did on the body. For this, I actually just used some brown paint and orange. That way it would dry a lot quicker. And with that and a little bit of off-camera assembly, it's on to those glorious JCPenney glamour shots. Oh my God! Thank you guys so much for watching the video. I hope you all enjoyed it. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button, and also leave a comment down below of who you would like to see me sculpt next. I'll see you next time.